Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3. Yes, I hear you well.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good evening. And good morning.
Well, over here, as you can see, the sun is shining. It's very bright. But for me, it's good morning. In the Gita, it says, Yanisha Sarva Bhutanam. Your night is my day.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yes, I want to tell you that I will be very happy if you publish a book devoted to Bhagavad Gita, which is based on these talks. I will be very happy.
Well, according to Pranashi, she's working on that. But see, my idea was to just do the 6 chapters. Now we're doing 7. And I don't know, we'll see how it goes, if we can make it to 18.
I hope so. But everything is due to Krishna's will, yes?
Yes, that's right. And there are so many versions, of course, of the Bhagavad Gita. The question is, why another one? Hare Krishna.
Yeah,
But
Hare Krishna.
But because the words of Krishna are living, it's always nice to have a living interpretation, a living message. The language changes also. So what worked, like I really love the translation by Srila Prabhupada. He was my initiating guru, I took Harinam initiation from him. And I came to the Hare Krishna movement because of this Bhagavad Gita. I love it. But then again, some of the things, if you look in there, you'll see, well, they're a little bit old, Maybe he talks about the hippies or something like that. I don't know if we have hippies anymore. Speaking of hippies. Good morning, there's Pranashish. Hi. Hare Krishna. It's good to see you. I think this is really kind of a miracle, our little community, because we have people from all over the world. And now I seem to see a tendency since about the 80s in world culture, and that is to isolate people into their demographic, so that if you are an Israeli Jew, for example, you will see Israeli Jewish television and Israeli Jewish dance and participate in Israeli Jewish politics. And that's your box, and they want to keep you in that box. And if you're Irish, Catholic, they want you to stay in the Irish Catholic box. And if you're Irish Protestant, it's the Irish Protestant box, and you can never get out of that box. And if you're an American, they want you to stay American and stay in that box. So everybody in their own little box. And it's very difficult to promote a universal message. And it leads into some philosophical arguments that have gone back and forth over the last 100 years as to whether the important thing is to stick to your own ethnicity and follow your caste, so to speak, or if there's something more of a universal message. And I think, personally, it's my interpretation that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was promoting something outside casteism. He says, Kiba Vipra, Kiba Shudra. No, Kiba Vipra, Kiba Nyasi, Shudra Keninoi. The thing is the Krishna Tattva. It doesn't matter if you're a Shudra or a sannyasi or a Vipra, a Brahmana. So, of course, the Hindus of his day kind of accused Mahaprabhu of going outside Brahmanism. And right now there's a current in India that kind of promotes Brahmanism. So in a way, we like that. It's good. They're promoting the Bhagavad Gita, right? They're promoting the ancient culture of India. But when it says that only people born as Brahmanas can be Brahmanas, well, I think Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and our line would sort of take issue with that. I think that the Krishna consciousness movement is supposed to be universal. And I think that because I found this book, the Bhagavad Gita, which is an old, I guess it's Hindu scripture, but written by Srila Prabhupada. And what was his message? Srila Prabhupada, it was saying, even if you're a Malecha or a Yavana, you can do this. You can chant Hare Krishna. You can be purified. I believe in that. That's what Mahaprabhu believed. So why not? Why not something universal? And if we all disintegrate into our petty political situation, then we lose the universality of the message. So the question is Krishna consciousness for an elite few among the Hindu elite, or is Krishna consciousness a universal message for people all over the world? And personally, I like the idea that it's a universal message because I look out and I see there's Satyabhama Didi from Morelia, Buenos Dias, good morning. And there's Brajasundari over there in Israel. And she's Russian, so I guess it's Dobre Dyan, maybe. I don't know. My Russian is not that good. I can say Harisho, Strasvitya, Dobre Dyan. And we've got Tungarasa, Dasi, Lilavati. People from all over the world are tuning into this broadcast, and you may only see 7 or 8 people on this Zoom class, but our message is being translated into Russian, Spanish, Italian, German, French, and from Sochi. It says here from Rasananda, hello to Sochi. We have folks here from Russia, folks here from Ukraine. I was in Ukraine. I went to Kiev, and I can read a little bit of Russian. So I went to this bookstore. I think it was a vegetarian coffee type bookstore, and we sat and had tea and talked about the Bhagavad Gita. And someone gave me a book of Shevchenko's poems, and I was reading that in Ukrainian. And people, of course, I don't really speak Ukrainian, but I can read Russian a little bit. And everyone was fascinated. Wow, the poems of Shevchenko. So we have people from all over the world. Right now, there's conflicts between many of our different countries, but those conflicts have nothing to do with our spiritual self. So I really like the idea of our primitive techno association here for reading the Bhagavad Gita. At the beginning of our talk, Vrajasundari mentioned that Pranashish is struggling to maybe create a text based on our talks and then make a little booklet or something. Maybe we can print a few chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. And we were saying, well, what's the need for a new text? The idea is that language is living. So I love this particular text. It's a great version of the Bhagavad Gita. Here's another one. Srila Sridhar Maharaj's translation. But each generation has its own way of talking about things. Each generation has its own language. So things that seemed very clear in English in the time of Shakespeare are not so clear to us now. And there's a need to update the ideas and language of the book. And that's why it's nice to have new editions. We see things from different perspectives. Leonardo da Vinci was very famous for that. He would study a thing from different points of view in order to understand it better. So now that we're all here, I'm going to get started. And I like to read this invocation because it's very difficult to speak on these things. I don't know if I'm qualified. I'm not a guru. I do not head any organization. I'm not an acharya in the sense that I'm running a temple or an ashram or anything like that. I'm just a solitary human being in my little study, practically living in exile in Mexico. But I've been called upon by some loving devotees like Pranashish, like Tapanandini, Juvananda, Rasananda, Praneshwari, and the rest. And they asked me, can you say something, give some reflections on the Bhagavad Gita? So I'm not here to teach you a dogma. There's Dandi Maharaj. He's somewhere in Ukraine. Hare Krishna Maharaj. It's always a pleasure to see you. And I'm not particularly an expert, but I've been trying to live these teachings for some time and think about them and set a good example. And I hope that our association will give me some inspiration to say something useful for you. Om Jnana Timrandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the salve of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamayam Tadati Svabadandikam. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who is established within this material world, the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatanvitam Tang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha. So there is mentioned the Avadut. Of course, the Avadut refers to Nityananda Prabhu, but we also take some shelter at the lotus feet of the Avadut. All right. So we're in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, Maya Sakta Manaparta Yogam Yunjan Madashraya Sangshayam Samagramam Yata Gyasyasi Tach Trinu. Tach Trinu means listen. Listen to that, Arjuna. I'm going to explain something to you now. So pay attention. And what is he talking about? Jnanam teham savigyanam. Jnanam and Vijnanam. Jnana means knowledge, and Vigyan means practical knowledge. Prabhupada said, theoretical and practical. Theoretical knowledge is like in language, you understand the grammar. Practical knowledge means you can hold the conversation. They're very different. So you might understand vaguely or theoretically some ideas, but how to put them in practice. Or the subject of the Gita so far has been yoga. So Krishna says, Yoginam api sarvesham, the best yogi is a bhakta. Well, how do you put that in practice? What does that mean? So we've had 6 chapters of more or less theoretical talk, and now Krishna comes to the practice. So there's a sea change or a point of departure here. Jnanam teham savijnana. He says, if you know this, then you don't need anything else. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kaschan mam veti tatpataha. And this is interesting. He says, out of many thousands of men, one may endeavor for perfection. And of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So out of thousands and thousands of people, very few are really interested in trying to understand higher knowledge. Most of the time, people are working, they're interested in financial security, a nice sexual situation, a home, a family, children, a little bit of wealth. That's what people want. Here in Mexico, it's, good family, good food, and football. That's what people love. They love football. So if you talk to someone about God or spiritual life, oh, no, don't talk about that, please. There are certain conversation subjects that you have to avoid always. Politics, religion, don't talk about sex. Football you can kind of talk about, but you have to be careful. But that's what people want. They don't want talk about God is very dangerous. If you get into religion, then you have your religion, I have my religion, and we're going to fight to establish that. And as far as truth, that's a deeper idea than religion. It's okay, you have your religion, I have my religion, but we're not going to try to talk about the truth. So Krishna says, out of thousands of men, maybe one is interested in the truth or attaining perfection. And out of thousands of them, who knows Krishna in truth? Kaschan mam veti tattvataha. So, now Bhaktivinoda Thakur has a really interesting comment on this. And it's something worthy of note. I'm reading from the Bhagavad Gita published by Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Maharaj. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Gyan, or knowledge in the true sense of the word, and in accordance with the precepts of devotion, is actually Bhagavad Aishwarya Gyan, or knowledge of the supremacy of the Lord. General seekers of knowledge may consider realization of the soul as distinct from the body and material elements to be enlightenment. But this does not constitute ultimate knowledge. Thus, to explain the conception of his lordships, the Lord reveals his forms, his potencies, and their characteristics. So this is really the key to understanding this chapter, because when Krishna speaks here about knowledge, he's speaking about knowledge of Bhagavan. So if you look at what is the definition of Bhagavan, Parashara Muni explains that the word bhag generally means opulence or wealth or Aishvarya, and Van is the possessor of that. So Bhagavan then means one who is full in six all the opulences. Parashara Muni says Aishwarasya samagrasya viryasya yashasashriya Jnanavairagyayos chaiva sanam bhagam itingana. And this is in the Vishnu Purana, which is very old. So according to Parashara Muni, he says Bhagavan means who possesses these six opulences in full: all riches, all strength, all influence, all wisdom, all beauty, and all renunciation. So in the Brahma Samhita, it says, Ishvara Parama Krishna, Sachidananda Vigraha, Anadir Adir Govinda, Sarva Karana Karanam, that Krishna is the cause of all causes, Sarva Karana Karanam. He's the principal absolute truth, Anadir Adir Govinda, and he's Sachidananda Vigraha. So the idea is that Bhagavan is the possessor of all opulences, all Aishwarya. Aishwarya is interesting because sometimes we hear Sridhar Maharaj talk about the difference between Aishwarya and Madhurya. And he says, of course, the goal of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas in the line of Rupa Goswami ultimately is the world of Madhurya, Vrindavan, whereas Aishwarya in general sort of refers to Vaikuntha. But insofar as one of these Aishwaryas is beauty, then you can understand that Bhagavan here also refers to God as reality, the beautiful, Sri Krishna. And this book was mentioned there by Prabhupada in his interpretation. This is the Brahma Samhita. And in the Brahma Samhita, we have Venam Kvanantam Aravinda Dalaya Taksham Balhavatam Shamashitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govinda Mari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. That Krishna is always playing the flute. His eyes are like blooming lotus petals. His head is adorned with a peacock feather. His beautiful form, the hue of a blue cloud, with a unique beauty that charms millions of cupids. And so I adore that Govinda. Aloka Chandra Kalasad Vanamalya Vamshi Ratnangadam Pranaya Keli Kalavilasam Shamam Tribanga Lalitam Niyata Prakasham Govinda Maripurusham Tamaham Bhajambi. And here in the Brahma Samhita, revealed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we find more description of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. Around his neck is a garland of forest flowers, swinging to and fro. He's adorned with a peacock feather, his flute in hand, with jeweled bracelets, who eternally revels in pastimes of love, whose charming threefold bending form, Shama Sundar, this is eternal feature. I adore that primal Lord. And so you'll find here in the Brahma Samhita a very intimate description of the Aishwarya of Krishna, or the glories of Krishna. So you can think of Aishwarya as meaning, we say opulences, and Prabhupada used that word 60 years ago or 50 years ago, but you can also think of this as the glory of God. It's very difficult to come up with good translations because so much of the language is influenced by Catholic, Protestant, Abrahamic religion. But glory is a nice word, I think. So what is the glory of God and how to know that? That's the subject of the 7th chapter. But so far, he's been talking about Aham Brahmasmi, I'm not this body. Arjuna, you're not that body. The kings here, they're not going to die, they're eternal, so do your duty. But now when pressed by Arjuna, tell me about the highest yoga. What is that? Well, that's the yoga of divine love. And love must have an object. So who is the divine lover, or who is it that we're loving? God. Well, how do you love God? First, you have to know his glories. This is what Krishna says here. And he says, I'm going to explain this knowledge to you about how you can know theoretically and practically about the glory of God. So he says, Bhumir apo nato vayu kammano buddhirevacha hankara itiyame bhina prakritir ashtada. So he begins with a bit of an ontological discussion. So what is the glory of God? Well, there's God as the supreme being, and there's his energy. Now, in Sanskrit, we call this Purush and Prakriti. Purush means person, but in this case, it's the supreme person. And Prakriti is matter, or material energy. But Srila Sridhar Maharaj used to discuss this in philosophical terms as the subject and the object. So God is the subject and everything else is his object. That's one way to look at it. Srila Sridhar Maharaj used to talk about the super subject. God is the super subject and everything else is the object. So that's kind of curious. Why? Because normally speaking, when we're in the world, we think I am the subject and everything else is my object. This world revolves around me. I'm the center and everything else is my product. I am the Lord of all I survey. This is my kingdom and I am the king. Later on, he talks about Ketra and Ketragya. There's the field and the knower of the field. So this field, the phenomenal world that surrounds us, is my object, and I am the Ketragya. I'm the knower of that phenomenal world. That's fine as long as I'm the only thing in the world. And just to be generous, I will include you, and you can be part of this, and we will all be the subjects of our world, and the world will be our objective reality as a kind of collective dream. But this is Maya, Krishna explains. You are not the subject. God is the subject. But if that's difficult for you to understand, let's put it in a bit more philosophical language, and we'll call God the super subject. After all, he creates everything. You can be the subject of your little dream, your little illusory world. And if you like, you can have friends and they can be the subject of their own illusory world. In fact, this illusory world is kind of like mass hypnosis. That's the idea of Maya. In the sense that originally consciousness somehow enters into or becomes fused with material energy. And that's what we experience. This is a kind of a collective mass hypnosis. Berkeley's idealism, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody hears it, does it make any sound? So that's taken as a very sort of extreme and absurd form of idealism. But people who criticize that avoid the point that God is there and he's also observing. So the tree doesn't fall in a void. The Paramatma is witnessing everything as the supreme Ketragya or knower of the field. So this entire field of material energy is being observed by the Paramatma, which holds it in place as reality. But at the same time, individual consciousness as the jivas are experiencing this field and reinforcing its reality, so to speak. Then the idea here is that consciousness is the ground of all reality. This is a very Vedantic idea. I don't know if I'm explaining it perfectly, but That's the general idea of Vedanta, that the time-space continuum, as Einstein called it, is not the total reality. There's another element that we cannot measure, which is consciousness, which sustains this reality. And I don't want to go too far afield. So earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Altogether, these 8 constitute my separated material energy. So in terms of the Paramatma and the Atma being supersubject and subject, this kind of prakriti of material energy is really quite separate. So Krishna says bina, it's separate. And people criticize Bhagavad Gita because they really don't like the idea of Krishna being God. But set that aside for a moment. Set your, suspend your disbelief in Krishna for a moment and take a look at that analysis. And it's quite pristine, crystal clear and beautiful analysis of the relationship between consciousness and matter and the stuff of which this world is made. Now, Krishna continues, he says, aparayam itastvanyam prakritim vidime param jiva bhutam mahabaho yayedam daryate jagat. So Krishna's explaining the different energies, the relationship between subject and object. And he says, besides these, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego, there's another superior energy of mind, which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. So Krishna's just broken down very quickly the ontology of being in terms of spiritual being, God, the supreme subject, the jiva souls, the individual subjects, and the object of the individual souls, which is the material world. Etad yonini bhutani sarvanityupadharaya aham kritsnasya jagata prabhava pralayastata. So all created beings have their source in these 2 natures. So exactly how does matter come about? How is spirit involved in matter? Krishna's not being specific on that point. He just says all created beings have their source in these 2 natures. So some sort of mix of matter and spirit, which is difficult to separate or ferret out. In Madhvacharya, we find absolute dualism. He says God is God, the world is the world, and there's an absolute distinction between them. God is God, the soul is the soul. There's an absolute dualism and distinction there. And the soul is the soul, the world is the world. There's an absolute distinction. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu liked the idea of Chintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, that these things are inexplicably entwined, and it's very difficult to distinguish sometimes. The split between matter and spirit is real, and it exists, and there is dualism. But just exactly how to see that with the mind and material senses is very difficult. So it's a chintya. It's not thinkable. It's beyond reason. And this is a sort of fascinating point. You can study quantum physics and see how true that is. Because if you look at subatomic matter and try to understand what it is and how it works, you have to use the mind and the reason to do it. But as you do so, it influences what you're studying. It's a very fascinating point. Take a look at The Tao of Physics by Fritjof Capra. So all created beings have their source in these 2 natures, of all that is material and of all that is spiritual know for certain that I am both the origin and the dissolution. And so to sort of sum this up, Krishna uses the example of pearls strung on a thread. Krishna doesn't say, I am an oyster, I create pearls. But he says, this material world rests upon me. Everything, spiritual energy as well, everything rests upon me as pearls are strung upon a thread. I'm looking at the commentary. Prabhupada says, from these verses, one concludes that the supreme absolute truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is all pervading by his multi-energies, both material and spiritual. So throughout the Gita, in many different places, Krishna is speaking very philosophically, and these are very deep ideas that you can reflect on. He's discussing the ontology of the soul, what exists, how we know about what exists, phenomenology, all these very deep philosophical ideas. But as I said before, this is kind of theoretical. So what's the practical take? If Krishna is talking about jnana and vijnana, where's the vijnana? How do I put this in action? So Krishna says, Rasoham apsu konteya, pravasmi shashi suryaya, pranava sarva vedeshu, shabda ke parusham rishu. So this is very sort of philosophical, what he was saying before, and you can meditate on that. But here's another meditation for you. You can think, well, all right, there's the mind and the senses. And, you know, what I see with the senses, that's Maya. But Krishna here is offering you a little bit different take on that. So he's saying, all right, let's get away from the philosophical frame that I've given you, and think about things like this. All right, everything that you see around you is a miracle. Everything that you taste and touch is a miracle given by God. People like certainty. They like legal arguments because we've been taught like that in the school to follow reason and rational arguments. But we don't have rational arguments for everything. When you go to sleep at night, you don't know that in the morning you're going to open your eyes and there's going to be a world. There's no way to prove that. After all, the sun could explode, there could be an earthquake, and your house could collapse on you. You might have a heart attack in your sleep. There's so many different ways that it's not going to happen that you open your eyes and, oh, there's sunshine. So that's beyond certainty. You can't prove that the sun is coming up tomorrow. So why not try to see things from a different angle of vision? Anybody who's been on the point of death or suffered from extreme illness, or I know myself, I had to go to the hospital for my heart. I had a heart attack, and I woke up in the hospital, and they had a big computer screen, and I can see, oh, look, there's my veins and my arteries, and the doctor's talking to me. And he says, well, oh, good, you're awake. Look at that. Can you see that? That's your heart. Boom, 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 boom. You see there's a line over there. Oh, okay, that's nice. Well, it's blocked. Oh, yeah? Uh-huh. And you have another line over there. Okay, that's also blocked. So now this artery is 100% blocked. It's finished. It's gone. Oh. And the other one is blocked 90%. You have one more artery over there that's blocked 92%. Oh, what does it mean? Well, now, if you like, we can open two of those arteries. We have to go in through your femoral artery. We have to open your leg and then stick something inside your leg, and then that will go into your heart. And inside your heart, we go, and we open a balloon. Really? You can do that? Mm-hmm. And then you'll feel the blood flow. You'll have oxygen to your brain. Oh, and if I don't, don't ask. Your days are finished. Really? Well, if I don't do the procedure, how long will I live? Well, I can tell you this. If you want to fall in love, fall in love. If you want to take a vacation and go visit Ireland, go. But, put your affairs in order. Make sure you have your insurance and your, last will and testament all signed. Oh, well, how much is this going to cost? Don't ask. You don't want to know. It's so much money that you'll have a heart attack if I tell you. That was 10 years ago. My point is, when you come out of the hospital and you realize, okay, I'm good. I can feel my heart. I'm better. You look at the sun and you go, oh, that's so beautiful. Look at that. Sunshine. And it is. It's a miracle. That's why in the Gayatri mantra, we're worshiping the sun. The sun is the most miraculous thing in the universe because it gives us light, it gives us heat, it gives us energy and life. And it's a metaphor for spiritual energy. It's a metaphor for the soul. It's a metaphor for God. So Krishna starts telling you this in the 7th chapter. All right, see the sun like that. Every day when you walk outside and see the sun, understand that's a miracle. That's the glory of God. That's me. I am the light of the sun. Wow. Now that's true if you have a near-death experience. It's also true if you fall in love, right? If you fall in love, you go outside and, oh, isn't that beautiful? Look, the sky is blue and the trees are green and the sun is shining. I love the sun. So Krishna is telling you, discover God in that way. Yeah, we know the sun is, it's a material object. It's the object of the senses in a very real material sense. It's not transcendental energy, but leave that aside. That's Sankhya philosophy. Think about your personal experience. Go outside, feel the sun on your skin. There was an astronaut. I like this story. I remember the first woman astronaut, I think, in the space station, the International Space Station that the United States had with Russia, going around the Earth. And she was in space for 534 days, which was a record. And finally, when she returned to Earth, they asked her, did you miss anything from the Earth planet when you were up there in space? She said, yes. I missed the feeling of sunshine on my skin because there's cosmic rays up there. You can't experience direct sunshine. You need a filter. There's a little, you can look down on the world through the porthole and see, oh, there's the world down there. But you can't feel sunshine on your skin. So the sun is a miracle. And this is what Krishna is telling you in this verse. He says, Rasoham apsu konteya, rasa. I am rasa. Of course, he's referring to the taste of water, not talking really about Madhurya rasa or Shanta rasa or Sakya Vatsalya. Rasa. The word rasa means juice, the juiciness, the sweet taste. So there's nothing sweeter than water. Water is sweeter than sugar. If you don't believe that, try sometime when you're really, really, really thirsty. Drink something with sugar, and you'll find it just doesn't satisfy me. I want pure water. So the pure taste of water, that's God. When you're drinking water, you can think of God. That's a miracle. How is it possible? We know that wherever there's water, there's life. We look for water on other planets because we think, well, if there's water there, there must be some life. So what is the stuff of water that makes life? That's Krishna. See, so people like to hear a well-organized argument proving the existence of God. If God can do anything, can he make a rock that he can't move? Well, if he can't, then he's not God because God is all powerful. And if he can, but then he can't move it, he's not God because God can, this sort of argument people love because they like to play mind games. But Krishna here is saying, all right, go beyond the mind games. Let's leave aside the philosophy for a moment and take your experience. Drink a glass of water. I'm there. Walk out into the sunshine. I'm there. I'm there in the sun. Is that a favorable wave? Yes. That's the most favorable wave. So sometimes we fall into temptation. We face adversity and we suffer. And we begin to think, why, God? Why are you doing this to me? And then we hear the explanation, well, it's Kali Yuga, it's all Maya. And we become cynical. And we think, yeah, those demons out there, they're ruining everything. The Kali Yuga demons are messing it all up. But it's not our business to see evil everywhere. That will not lead you closer to God. In fact, in terms of seeing evil, even Jesus Christ says, resist not evil. What does that mean? Resist not evil. It's kind of an interesting thing. Tolstoy comments on that. He says, well, isn't it your duty to resist evil? But if you think about it, if you spend your time resisting evil, you have to use the methods that are employed by evil, and that's in the mode of passion, the mode of ignorance, the dark mode. In resisting the evils present in communism, for example, the United States built 30,000 nuclear weapons, thinking, this is a good way to resist evil. And by the same token, the Soviet Union built 20,000 nuclear weapons. But these actions created an evil far greater than those being resisted, the danger that civilization itself will be destroyed. So the idea that we have to look out for Maya everywhere, we have to protect ourselves from Maya, we have to resist evil all the time, prevents us from seeing things in a favorable light, from seeing that every wave is favorable, that God is present everywhere and in everything. Of course, the idea of the ever-present God, that's not really the same as Krishna consciousness. That's why Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, to really understand this tattva, this truth, you need bhakti and devotion. And then you'll begin to see everything as a favorable wave and Krishna everywhere. So Krishna says, Rasoham apsu kanteya prabhasmi shashi suryaya pranava sarva vedeshu. Of the Vedas, I'm the pranava. I'm the Om mantra in the Vedas. So you can take all the Vedic information and reduce it to the Omkara. And Sri Ramakrishna used to say, Om, what does it mean? A big yes. What you're looking for, it is, it exists, it's real. So how do you know that? I was asked by a scientist in Petersburg. I talk to the universe, but I don't hear anything. God doesn't answer my prayer. And I told her, listen, be quiet, listen. You can hear the universal sound of Om. Krishna says, Shabdake Paurashum Reshu. I am Shabda. Of course, he means transcendental sound. But even mundane composers like Gustav Holst wrote a symphony called the Planets. I forget if it's a symphony or a suite. But the idea was that there's universal sound and that each planet makes its own symphony. Each planet makes its own sound. So again, if you see something, if you hear something sublime in music, you listen to music of Mozart or Beethoven, it moves you. What's moving you there? That's Krishna. That's on a physical, external sense, right? That's sensual, I don't know, stimulus, right? But the thing that gives you ecstasy and inspiration, that's Krishna. So you can find Krishna in inspiration. He says, Punyo Ganda Prativamya Tejas Chasmi Vibhavasu Jivanam Sarvabhuteshu Tapas Chasmi Tapasvishu. I'm the original fragrance of the earth. So any fragrance that's pure and powerful, the pure original fragrance of the earth, that's coming from God. You can see God there. So you can perceive divinity even through the senses, because behind that sensual information is Krishna himself. He says, I'm the heat and fire. So Krishna is the light of light, and he's the heat and fire. What's fire without heat? I'm the life of all that lives. And I'm the penances of all ascetics. Bijam mam sarvabhutanam vidiparta sanatanam buddhir buddhimatam asmi tejas vinam aham. Tejas means power. So Krishna is the power behind the power. He's the energy behind the energy. O son of Prita, know that I am the original seed of all existence, the intelligence of the intelligent, and the prowess of all powerful men. I am the strength of the strong, devoid of passion and desire. So where you see power, where you see great energy, the energy of the stars or the power of a wrestler, there's Krishna. So people ask, well, where is God? I don't see God. Show me. But wait a minute. Take a look at the sun. Taste some water. Warm yourself by a fire. That's coming from God. That's a miracle. And so the fact that I'm sitting here and moving some flesh and bone and sound is coming out, but there's people all over the world listening and saying, okay, Bhagavad Gita, that's a miracle that we can communicate with Shabda, with words. That's a miracle. So you're surrounded by thousands of miracles in your daily life, and you're going to tell me there's no higher power, there's no divinity? Krishna says, Dharma virudho bhuteshu kamosmi bharatarshava. He says, I'm libido. I'm not the orgasm within sex. Of course, when it's done according to religious principles, but the idea that you want to create a baby, you want to bring another soul into this world, I'm behind that. I'm there. That's me. Oh, Lord of the Bharats. Ye chaiva sattvika bhava rajasas tamasas chaye. Mata eveti tam vidhi natvaham teshu te mai. All states of being, goodness, passion, ignorance, are manifested by my energy. So if you walk outside your door and you see, well, there's an insect crawling along, that's coming from Krishna. He's there. He's within that insect as the jiva. He's outside the insect as his manifest prakriti. I am in one sense everything. Mata evati tan vidi natvaham teshu te mai. But I am not governed by the modes of material nature because they're all just part of my power. So, of course, we're not to try to understand this in a false way and think that, oh, well, the material energy is God. That's what Mahayogi told me. No. Keep in mind all the ontology of the first 6 chapters of the Gita. But Krishna is giving you a hook to hang on to here. He's giving you a very real, practical way that you can experience transcendental reality. Then he says, Tribir gunamayir bhavayar ebi sarvamidam jagat mohitam nabijanati mam ebya paramavyayam. On the other hand, because people are so absorbed in their life, they're stuck in the material modes of nature, goodness, passion, ignorance. They don't think about these things. When we go outside and experience sunshine, we don't think, oh my God, that's a miracle, sunshine. You think, oh, I'm late for the bus. What time is the bus? Why does the bus run every hour? It should run every half hour. We need to do something. We'll organize politics. And we get lost in the trivia of our day-to-day life. And so Krishna says, because of that, people are deluded and they don't pay attention to the higher reality. And he concludes this little section by saying, Daivahyesha gunamaya mama maya duratyaya mameva ye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. He says, this divine energy of mine, consisting of the 3 modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. So we often hear devotees just cursing their bad luck because everything is Maya, people are absorbed in Maya, Maya is bad, we can't overcome it, it's all Maya, Maya, Maya. But this is Mayavad, that's not our point of view. Krishna says, those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So you can get through the Maya. He's giving you a free ticket. He's giving you a key, to open the door, to get out of the Mayic container that we're in. So the next time you're walking along outside, you can feel the sunshine on your back and think, this is a miracle. It's a miracle from God. You can see the green earth rising around you with the sweet fragrance and think, this is a miracle from God. I'm so fortunate to be alive. And the idea is, by understanding every wave as favorable and seeing the true glory of God, you can become closer to God, closer to divinity. And that and the association of devotees will lead you into bhakti. So seeing the glory of God, feeling that everywhere, that will help you with your faith. And then associating with other devotees who know this will bring you to a higher level of faith. And that's my message for today. So there's the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. I got up to the 15th verse. I don't know how many verses there are in this. There's 30. Okay, so that's halfway through. And this is a good place to stop. So I hope I haven't bored you. I hope that my talk was coherent and that through your inspiration, I was able to say something useful that might be helpful. So I feel strange about taking questions because it puts me in the position of knowing, and it puts you in the position of saying, "Oh, I need help." But it's nice to take questions because it shows that I'm not the dictator. So if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to try to help. And if not, then this is a good time for me to disappear. I'd like to thank Vrajasundari for sort of organizing and sponsoring this talk. And I like the way she puts together the little graphics because they help me to think. I'm thinking I have to speak on this. I don't know. And my tendency is always toward the ontological and the philosophical. But I thought, no, wait, no. Raso hum absukantaya. Yeah, that's nice. Every drop of water is Jamuna water. Every drop of water is Ganges water. The Ganges, after all, is the ocean is the sum total of all the holy rivers that flow into it, including the Ganges. And so as part of the water cycle, when you taste water, you're tasting the pure taste of the Ganges, and there's Krishna. He says, it's in the... So when I saw that little graphic with the drop of water that Rajasundari put up, I thought, yeah, miracles. So think about miracles, be miracles. Let's not fall into so much negative. We're surrounded by so much Kali Yuga. It's really hard. The modes of nature, really hard. But you have your faith, and I believe in miracles. Hare Krishna. All right. No one has any questions? Well, it's thanks to Lilavati Didi. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Thanks to Satyabhama. Muchas gracias, Satyabhama, para escuchar y hacer traducciones para la gente de Morelia, Michoacán. Praneshwi Devi Dasi, I think, is in Florida. She always stands in front of that giant Tulsi bush. It's so beautiful. Das Anu Das and Mahaprabhu Das, Radhamadava Das in the United States, Tunga Rasa Dasi, Ananta Shesh, España. My Spanish is terrible, but it works, you know. Nirupama, Mar, Jaidev, Pranashish as usual, CS, what is it? CSM 360. Okay, and somewhere in Ukraine. And of course, Vrajasundari, let's send a lot of love and blessings and miracles to help Vrajasundari. She needs it. Pranashish, I need it. Dandi Maharaj needs it, you know, because he's responsible for promoting miracles in Ukraine.
Mahayogi Prabhu, can you hear me now? Simply, I was translating, that's why.
In Mexico, we do this. That means yes.
Okay. Simply, I was making a translation. That's why you couldn't hear me, and now I switched off the translation. So I wanted simply to tell you that Lilavati Didi wrote Jaya. What a wonderful chapter. There are so many reasons to be happy. She wrote it in Russian.
That's right. Yeah, why not? Devotees, we're supposed to be in ecstasy, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not really a hippie because I'm too young to be a hippie. The real hippies are about 5 years older than me. But that generation, we thought a lot about ecstasy. Timothy Leary had a book, The Politics of Ecstasy. And we thought, yeah, get high naturally, chant Hare Krishna. This is for ecstasy. So the idea is Ananda is the food of the soul, and we're supposed to be well-fed Hare Krishna souls. We should be ecstatic and happy. And we should be a beacon of light for the other people who are living in darkness and sadness. And so instead of moping around and, oh, it's all bad, I can't do it anymore, we're in the modes of nature, Maya, 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 Kali Yuga and demons. That's not our religion. Maybe, I don't know, some of my God brothers, they like that. It helps them somehow, but that's not what Srila Prabhupada really taught. He taught that you can be happy. Why not? And one way to be happy is you see the miracles in life. Look around you. It's not so hard. Look at your daughter. She's a miracle. Like, oh, she's a miracle. It is, you know. It's not all bad material energy. Every wave is favorable. Why did Sridhar Maharaj say that? That's a terrible thing. What do you mean read Candide by Voltaire, okay? That's a critique. That's a critique of Spinoza and others who say we live in the best of all possible worlds, right? Every wave is favorable. What do you mean? Look at Voltaire. No, look at the miracles. That's what that's what I'm getting from the 7th chapter anyway, right now, today, February 4th, 2022. Maybe tomorrow I'll have a different point, but you know, thank you all for tuning in. Muchas gracias de nuevo. Sí existen los milagros, chicos. Okay?
Yes, thank you, Mahayogi Prabhu. Thank you very much for this beautiful talk about this beautiful chapter. Thank you for being with us. Thank you very much. I hope that we will see you next week.
I hope so too.
Because after you said it, that maybe tomorrow there will be no sun, so nobody knows.
That's right.
But I hope that we will meet each other next week, and you will continue to tell us about the 7th chapter. Jai Mahayogi Prabhu ki Jai.
Okay, pray. Hare Krishna, pray for my soul, okay? Haribol. Adios.
Jai. Dandavат.
Дандаваты. Всем дандаваты. Я выключила в конце перевод. В общем, я надеюсь, что на следующей неделе, в пятницу, мы все увидим тоже друг друга и продолжим слушать Махаяги Прабху. Джай, Харе Кришна.
Джай, Дандават.
Дандаваты. Примите, пожалуйста, мои поклоны.
Сатьябхама, Яшода, Лакшмиприя, Махапрабху. Джай, Праньяфрадиди, Дандават. 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 And tomorrow is appearance day of Janata Maharaj. Завтра день явления Джаната Махараджа. О, Джай Лавати. Дандават, раз видите. Так что завтра во всех наших центрах отмечают день явления Джаната Махараджа, великой души, великого преданного. Объявление у нас уже есть на сайте, все знают.
Джай, 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 Данди Махарадж, ки Джай.
Шрила Бхакти Паван Джаната Махарадж, ки Джай.
Джай.
Как бы авансом заранее тем, кто, с кому завтра не могу этого сказать. Джай.
Джай. Дандаваты. Я закрываю конференцию. До свидания.
Дандават, рада всех видеть.
Взаимно, взаимно. Харе Кришна.